Welcome back to AWE TV. I'm Mark Pizer. I'm here with Dr. Steve Mann, Chief Scientist of Meta. Steve, your talk, you mentioned 35 years working on HMDs. You're working with Meta now. Just give me a general take, your views. 35 years, and now it's you. 35 years ago, you were working, trying this out, experimenting. Now it's a $240 billion industry. Right. 35 years. Did it take that long? You must have gone through a lot of passionate nights of getting that together so that we can see it here.
So as an inventor, I like to work on things. I like to build things. That's something I really like doing. So since my early childhood, I've been inventing, tinkering, playing, exploring.
Yeah, and you've grown that. I mean, electronics. People had to see you on with this headset, and they must have been kind of frightened or scared, like they are now. Like they think people are trying to separate themselves, but you're not about that. You want to incorporate people into this world.
I think this is a humanizing technology to actually make people more human. And so what I really think that we can sort of live in this world and share these worlds and interact and connect. And that was kind of my vision back in the 70s, and is ways of making people be able to see things. Like, we live in this world where there's all kinds of things looking at us, and there's this mysterious surveillance is a world that's very dehumanizing. It's a secret watching. And what I thought we could do is make the world of valence, which is more of an open sensing, that people can sense each other, and there's more of a shared reality.
You've coined the term surveillance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Surveillance is Internet of Things, basically, and surveillance is wearables. And I think when you bring those together, you get valence. Valence. Which is wearables plus IoT. If you take the word surveillance and remove the first three letters from it, you're left with just watching. Surveillance means watching from above, or centralized watching. And surveillance is personal watching, outward watching, instead of inward watching.
What comes with surveillance and kind of this, they don't necessarily, they haven't necessarily worked together, but surveillance has kind of become more a topic of interest, especially in the last year in politics. People are using their cameras as a form of capturing justice or seeing justice happen. So I think people are using that as a tool now, and your surveillance is happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's an obvious thing, but I think the other thing is meta-sensing, the sensing of sensing and the visualization of vision. And if we think more generally about wearables and IoT working together, we are quickly living in a valence society. And it's really an Internet of Things and people.
Were they always meant to converge like that? Internet of Things and wearables?
Well, I always thought of it together in a unified framework.
Always. Yeah.
And I sort of thought of the merging of the computer-generated world and the real physical world with the human world, the three axes. You got bits, atoms, and genes near the origin, and then extending outwards, you've got, the computer science, physical science, and social sciences. And so there's these three things that are converging, a nexus of three different things.
And we're at that point where they are at the center, and we're just learning how to live with those three.
Yeah.
What are some problems that we're facing in terms of being comfortable with this convergence, this nexus?
Well, it's really interesting. In the early days, people walked across the street to avoid me because they thought it was crazy. Then in the 70s, and then in the 1980s, when I started putting it in eyeglasses instead of helmets, people thought, wow, that's really cool. They came running over and saying, I want one too. And they didn't even know what it was, but they want one, like they want to be part of this. And yet, it's finally, even to this day, it's the large organizations that are the biggest obstacle.
How so? Give me an example of it.
Well, so an example is like in T&T supermarket, they said that seeing aids are not allowed, cameras are not allowed. Okay. And then I said, well, what are all those things? Oh, those are for security, those are not cameras. Right. And I said, well, suppose my seeing aid transmits to the police. Would that make it not be a camera and therefore it would be allowed?
Yeah. What did they say?
Well, they didn't have a lot to say to that.
Yeah, there's no response.
Because they're kind of wrong, or in some cases they're not even wrong. They're so off the chart. And I think that something interesting is going to happen. For one thing is the technology is going to get so small that people won't even know whether or not you have it.
Contacts.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, it's just, we're moving towards a valence society, and it seems that I can understand other people being concerned about it, but the very people who are bringing us the surveillance, for them to be concerned about it is really, it shows their lack of integrity.
And their lack of knowledge of why they're doing it.
Well, specifically hypocrisy. That is, we're watching you, but you can't watch us.
Sure.
The opposite of hypocrisy is integrity.
Okay.
So surveillance is the valence of hypocrisy, but I could also say surveillance is the valence that lacks integrity.
Surveillance is up here, surveillance is down here. And
yeah.
Those merging is kind of a democracy of who sees who.
Well, it's a matter of integrity. It's a matter of surveillance brings the integrity that's needed to valence.
What can we expect in the next year here? Surveillance, HMDs, Meta has shown some advancement in the last year. What might we see in the next year at AWE?
I think in the next year what we're going to see is at least, it's hard to say exactly when, but we're going to see the decline of AR. So I've talked about the rise and fall of AR. And in particular with augmented reality, when you add or augment, at some point in time your brain gets full and it's too much. And what we need is mediated reality. And so this is what I talked about as the mediality axis. So we have the augmented mixed sort of virtuality axis, but we need also the mediality axis. We need the capacity not only to add in things, but also to take things away.
Filter some things out.
So for example, advertising and billboards can be repurposed for new content. Conceptually, that's just one example. Once you acknowledge the existence of that example, it tells us that augmented reality is shallow. It's missing something.
Do we know what that something is? What's it?
Well, I can simply construct at least one example to show that there's something
missing
that's missing from AR that's really important.
Well, I hope we'll see. I look forward to seeing you here at AWE again next year.
And we might have to call it augmediated reality expo or something.
The name has changed already from ARE to AWE, and we should pitch that.
Yeah, something to be relevant, because I do think that we really have to think about the way in which it actually interacts with people and the way in which it doesn't overload information. If you look at how many people here are hawking their wares versus using them, like if you go to a clothing store to buy a shirt, you'll find most people in the store are wearing clothes.
Yes.
I'm coming here, are most people who are coming here to look wearing AR? What's wrong? We've been at this for I've been at this for 41 years. What's the problem here? And I think something has to do with there's a lot of hype.
Sure.
But I think the real substance of it is going to have to be mediation. It's a mediating device. It needs to help people see better, for example.
There's a message here. What can people do to help understand what you're talking about, this hypocrisy? What can people do to help learn about what's coming?
Well, take a look at some of the things that I've written on the EYETAP.org website, EYETAP.org. Take a look at some of the publications we've had. In there is some wisdom that we've garnered for the last 41 years working in AR. And in particular, try to think about advancing technology for humanity. That's the IEEE, the world's largest technical society. That's their tagline, advancing technology for humanity. If we take that mission to heart, we start to think about things that actually help people see better, for example.
Sure.
Now, if eyeglasses can't help a person see better, it's kind of like a wristwatch that can't even tell time. We've really missed the boat there.
Okay. Well, check it out. EYETAP.org, EYETAP.org. Check it out. There's a message here to be learned. Thanks. I'm Mark Pizer, and with me is Dr. Steve Mann. Thanks.